Hello everyone, and welcome to a small little video that I'm making here from home today, uh, based on a request that I have just received a while ago from somebody who I believe has been following my videos and has requested me to explain on Efato, or engine failure for takeoff, and even landing with one engine and a missed approach. Sadly, I'm not in a simulator right now. If I was in a level D simulator, maybe this presentation here would have made a lot of more sense. But I just came from a recurrent a couple of months ago, and my other recurrent are in a couple of months ahead. So it's a bit difficult to get hold of a level D simulator where I am and maybe show you what actually happens and what you observe and what you are expecting to observe should it, God forbid, happen to you in reality, in the real aircraft. And of course, for obvious reasons, we cannot shut down a passenger aircraft intentionally for demonstration of such things. It doesn't work that way. We can demonstrate other things like the FMS I've been demonstrating, approaches and other programming. We can demonstrate less tutorials while we are flying commercially, but we do not demonstrate anything, any emergencies while you are with passengers intentionally. That is completely wrong and subject to your license being revoked simply because you're not in your right mind. So, and I can't even show this to you on the Microsoft Flight Simulator PC that I have, but I'll try my best to explain. And those of you who are watching, and if the gentleman or the person who has actually requested me is watching, maybe a couple of notes can be taken as I say one thing, maybe repeat it, and it might make sense. So, Efato stands for engine failure after takeoff. And what we can do right now is to assume that we've lined up for takeoff. Okay? We've lined up for takeoff and we apply takeoff power. The V1 call comes and the engine fails. Now, it is very, very unlikely that an engine actually fails at V1 or even a bit after V1. It's unlikely. It happens. I'm not saying it doesn't, it happens. But engine failure can occur at any phase of flight. Okay, so let's make an ideal cases here just for the purpose of explanation. You reach V1 and the engine fails. How do you handle it? Over the years, as I've been doing my training in the simulator for this particular case, I've just devised a way to remember which rudder to step on. Because often we tend to step on the wrong rudder, especially when the failure occurs after rotation. That's when the confusion comes. But I'll explain to you how we can actually manage this. So when the engine failure occurs on the ground, as you've just passed V1, obviously you won't reject. You will have to take the aircraft airborne for obvious reasons. A reject maneuver may make you end up not stopping within the confines of the runway. You may damage the aircraft more severely than you might have if you have taken the aircraft airborne, sort the problem out, and come back and landed. Okay? So, when the engine fails on the ground, as you're rolling, V1 engine failure, keep your eye on the center line. I say one thing, step on the center line. So if the if the center line is moving to the right, you step on the right rudder. If the aircraft moves to the left, if the runway center line is moving to the right, you step on the right rudder. If the runway center line is moving to the left, you step on the left rudder. Now, why do we do this? Here's why. It's very simple. Let's say you are moving on the runway after V1 and the number 2 engine, the right engine, has failed. Okay? Which way will the aircraft go? It will go to the dead side, to the right side. There'll be a yaw from the left side. So which way will the runway go? To the left side, to the right side, to the live engine side. So when the runway center line moves to the left, you step on the left rudder. Now let's say the same scenario, but this time you've lost engine number 1. That was number 2 engine lost. Now you're using number 1 engine, the left-hand engine. So if the left-hand engine is lost, what will the aircraft do? Again, it will move to the dead side, to the left side, by the yaw from the right side. Okay? Which way will the runway center line move? To the right. You are moving to the left, but the center line of runway is moving to the right. So you step on the live side, step on the runway. That's how you control the aircraft on the ground. Then you gently rotate, keeping the rudder pressure, and start trimming. Immediately start trimming. Okay? Gently, so that you can ease off the forces in a good time, and the aircraft can make a steady climb. Okay? You can trim the rudder and trim up with the aileron, so you can climb comfortably in a steady state. Okay? So step on the center line is the rule when the engine failure occurs on the ground. I hope that makes sense. So next time you're doing this drill, you look at the center line always. The moment you see the yaw, where the center line is going is where your foot is going in. Okay? I hope that makes sense. That's how you control it on the ground, after which you take it airborne. Now, the tricky part used to be, for me, until I got to know, when you airborne. So V2 cut. That was V1 cut, by the way. Some platforms, some videos will mention as V1 cut. V2 cut is when you've rotated with 2 engines, and all of a sudden the aircraft has wobbled. You can just hear, something has gone wrong. Engine failure. Now, the moment you rotate, people tend to, in the simulator especially, because they want to catch the fault immediately, then they make mistakes. I did the same thing as well, until I got to know what was happening. My eyes were on the torque meters, or on the N1 gauges, if you will, if you're flying a jet. All right? And whichever gauge went down is where I should, I know that engine has gone down, so I apply the opposite rudder for the opposite gauge, which is on live. That ended in confusions. And I was always making a mistake of sometimes applying the wrong side, and the yaw aggravated, and you know what I mean, okay? Simulator. But I got to know that, okay, the moment you rotate, the runway is still under you. So as you're rotating, as much as you are keeping the bars climbing, but there is no harm in just keeping a look a bit of outside and see where the runway is. And then what happens? You have an engine failure now. After V2, you have an engine failure. Again, the aircraft will yaw, right? It will yaw towards the dead side. So the runway will move towards the live side. Makes sense? So whichever way the runway now, that was the center, first one was the center line when you're on the ground. Because runway is already occupied, you've already occupied the confines of the runway. But when you rotate, the runway is below you, you can actually see it. So in that case, when engine failure occurs, no need to look at many things. Look at the runway. Whichever way the runway is going, you apply rudder in that direction. So if the runway is moving to the right, you're going to apply right rudder. If it's going to the left, you apply the left rudder. Okay? So I hope that makes sense. So if you've rotated, and let's say you lose the engine number 2, the right-hand engine. Okay, which way will the runway go? It will go to the left side, because you are going to go to the right side. You're going to go to the dead engine. The aircraft always yaws towards the dead engine. Okay, now let's say rotate again, and this time let's say engine number 1, the left-hand engine, conks out. Which way will the aircraft go? The aircraft will go towards the dead engine, the left side, but the runway will go to the right side, the live side. So that's how you control it. Okay, you don't have to look at, you don't have that much time, the reaction time, for you to look at the slip skin indicator at that moment, or the torque meters, to immediately diagnose which one has failed and apply the right correction, is not within the reach of an average human. Okay, as humans, we are first of all used to looking at the bigger side of the picture. Then we can cross-check with our slip skin indicator whether we've pressed the proper rudder, the rudder input. Okay, so these indicators are very important. Runway center line when you're on the runway, and the runway itself as a whole when you rotate, and you push the rudder in the direction in which the center line is going away from you when you're on the ground, or in which the whole runway is going away from you. Okay? I hope that is making sense. Now, that is how to control the aircraft. Procedures now will depend on the company SOPs. Okay? We have our own procedures currently where I'm working. If I move to another place, they'll have their own procedures, and so on and so forth. But these are just the tricks that you can apply. Others will have their own tricks. Okay? Some will say a seat of the pant flying. Of course, it works. The same thing, the same things they do. Okay? Now, once you do the correction, let's say your right foot is in or your left foot is in, once you are airborne, safely airborne, trim it out. Immediately trim it out. Okay? Trim it out and scan the slipskid indicator so it's centralized. Okay? And then trim the aileron as well, slightly up, so you are having a continuous level climb. Okay? That's one very important thing I want to share with you on the takeoff. Okay? I hope that makes sense. So correct for the center line or for the runway, step the rudder which is in the direction of the center line or of the runway as a whole, depending on whether you're on the ground or you've become airborne after V2, because you'll still have the runway visible. Okay? Now, once you're, let's say, in the cruise, okay, and an engine failure occurs in the cruise, that's not difficult to handle because the aircraft will yaw and your instinct will tell you which way to apply the rudder. You have enough time there, you've got the room there to control things. That's not the problem. Okay? Now, there was the query which came was about single engine approaches and misapproaches. Okay? So, here's how it works. Pretty much it works the same as dual engine. There is no difference. You just got one engine, but your automation there, your bars and everything is the same. Okay, so you execute that approach as though you are executing a dual engine approach. But there is only one little thing I can maybe share with you what I do. Here's what I can give an example. Let's say my number one engine is live engine, so number two has failed, and number one engine is live. Okay. When I apply a bit of power, what I do personally, when I apply power just to maintain the speed, because you know in the approach phase, right, you are it's not auto. We don't use auto throttle in the aircraft I fly in Dash 8 or in any other, I think, aircraft. When engine failures occur, it's all about controlling things manually. Okay, so what I do is that as the power goes up, the foot goes in. So after you run your checks, right, there will come a point where you operate the power levers together. There is that item in the checklist of the QRH of the Dash 8 Q400 which I fly. I'm pretty sure it might be the similar or same in other aircrafts. So after the procedures are done, there is a place which says operate the power levers together. So there, it's just for the feel. It's better to hold a bigger thing, if that sounds right. But anyway, power lever rather than holding a smaller, the only one power lever. So as the power goes up, the foot goes in. Now, what I do is that the moment I apply power, by now I know which engine is live. Which engine is live? So let's say my left engine is live. If I apply power, I will trim a bit towards it. If I decrease power, I will reduce the trim towards it. So it's a constant move. If my right engine was live, in the camera there, my left hand might be swapped, so apologies for that. My ring is on the left hand. I'm a married person, by the way, so it's on the left, but it might show right. Anyway, topic of another day. So if the right engine is live, if I apply power to correct for the speed, I must trim to the right. If I decrease power, I must trim a bit to the left. I say it again. You trim in the direction of the live engine. So in that way, if you do it quickly, that slipskid indicator will be centralized all the way down. That's what I do. Okay. The aim is not to have the slip skill indicator deviate from the triangle, okay, on your wings level indicator on the PFD. All right, so next time maybe when you do this, try those things. It may work out for you. You might come up with better techniques, but so far this is what I've learned. Okay, the trimming is very important. Okay, and then obviously discipline of keeping the flight director bars, if you're doing a flight director approach, is very important as well. Okay, and then in the simulator things become more interesting when you want to do raw data with an engine failure. So that's also another scanning thing. Interesting if some simulators are pretty much well programmed for that. In the raw datas in the real aircraft, I do them all the time actually, when the weather permits, by the way. It's interesting. It's a very good practice. Okay, so I hope the person who has asked this question, it makes sense to what I do in the simulator. Thank God I've never faced this sort of serious thing in my line flying right now. I did a while back. Just there was an asymmetry in one of the engines, but we controlled it very well and came back and landed. There was just a problem, but that was not an issue. That was a big issue, but I still felt that in the real aircraft. So I hope it makes sense, and if there's any further questions and further things you want me to explain to you, I'll be very glad actually. I love sharing knowledge, what I little can get, and I even appreciate anybody else who can contribute to their own knowledge, because as an aviation family, we are here to share knowledge. Okay, pilots always share knowledge. You might save somebody one day. Okay, hope that makes sense. Until the next time then, keep well, happy landings, and always be safe. No time pressure, no pressure from anybody. Safety comes first, okay? The rest is just not your problem, okay? If you'll be safe, you'll keep your company safe. You'll keep everybody else safe. Till the next time, have a nice one.